Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about Hedera and Hbar, as well as the vast majority of crypto and finance. And with that being said, I hope that you're all having a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are out there in the world. So this video is specifically highlighting why Hbar hasn't pumped in price yet. I get a lot of questions on this channel, and one that really stands out on pretty much any video that I make, whether it be XRP, HBAR, XLM, XDC, any altcoin, it doesn't matter. Everyone's question is always why these altcoins are not pumping, even though we see all this bullish news around them. We see, all this great stuff happening. And it's always the question, why isn't there any price action? Well, in this video, I'm going to break everything down. I'm going to teach you guys exactly what to look at if you are holding any altcoin out there and you want to see it break out and pump significantly higher than it is right now. So let's dive on in. Let's first start with the market itself. Everything is reliant on Bitcoin. You might question, why? Why is Bitcoin this dominant force to be reckoned with in this space? Why is it the number one project? Why does it have the largest market cap? And it's because this market is only this market only exists because of Bitcoin. Outside of Bitcoin, would DLT have been a thing? Would distributed ledger technology have been a thing? Yeah, sure, it would have been. But Bitcoin paved the way for this entire ecosystem to be created. And since then, it's always maintained a very large percentage of the market dominance, which is what we run off of. We run off of Bitcoin dominance. Now, in recent times, Bitcoin dominance has been dropping significantly, which also shows interest around Bitcoin is also dropping. You've probably heard of the Ethereum flippening in the past. That typically happens when Ethereum starts to run wild. We've also heard the idea of other altcoins overtaking Bitcoin at some point in time and flipping it for the number one spot, which will happen. Regardless of if you are a Bitcoin maxi or not, you have to come to the conclusion that Bitcoin is not going to be the number one project forever. It simply isn't. And it's not about being biased or not, or it's not about the idea that I hate Bitcoin. No, I want Bitcoin to go significantly higher because it means a lot more money is tied to the space, which is ultimately going to flow into other investments around the space as well, aka those altcoins. Now, as we look at that, we look at what is going to happen next for a lot of these altcoins. Hbar hasn't done much so far, but that's because of the dominance around Bitcoin. We're not yet in alt season. This is something that I've been talking about for a while on the channel, as you guys are probably all aware of. We have been waiting and waiting and waiting for alt season. Now, one thing that you probably notice on this chart actually is the resistance peaks from 2023. At about roughly 9 cents and almost 10 cents. Now, as you guys do see on this recent retest of this low in April, we retested that level and held it as support, aka us flipping macro resistance into support. Now we're just waiting for Hbar to have a big breakout. But how do we know when that's going to be? Well, let's look into a few things. So number one, the path to alt season. This has been something that we followed for so long, and will it always work? Will it always be a thing? Not exactly, but it has so far done very well to follow this path, which is typically money starts flowing into Bitcoin. We already got that. If you go all the way back to 2022 and you look at the chart for Bitcoin, guys, Bitcoin already saw a massive surge in value from roughly sub 20K. It's sitting at about 15.6K, all the way to almost $74,000. So Bitcoin already had a massive run up. Does that mean that Bitcoin is done? Not exactly. But what we end up seeing within phase one is money start flowing into Ethereum. Now, so far, we've kind of saw that already, but the problem is that Ethereum hasn't been able to keep up with Bitcoin at this moment. As you guys do see, Ethereum is sitting at about roughly like almost $351 billion in market cap. And also trading volume, it's pretty much less than 50% of Bitcoin's. So right now, there's still a lot more focus on Bitcoin in terms of trading volume and just attention itself outside of Ethereum. And that's why when we look at this like phase overlap, where we're looking into money flowing into Ethereum, but it's struggling to keep up with Bitcoin, we're kind of already there. And then we also have Ethereum goes back and forth with Bitcoin and starts outperforming it. Now, we will see that happen in terms of gains, but it's not happening just yet. We're not at that point yet. But that's when we start to move into phase 2, which is Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin. And then you hear the talks of the flippening, which I do believe that we will see that yet again. Right now, we're not really seeing that. Now, during that phase 2, we will start to see money trickling into large caps, where we see large overlap buy-ups happening of altcoins outside of Ethereum. And that's when we really kind of look at like XRP, ADA, Solana, Dogecoin, things like that, that start to really kind of move heavy. That's where we go to phase 3, which is Ethereum has been outperforming Bitcoin and large caps are going parabolic. This is where you also see that phase overlap, where regardless of market cap, some altcoins with strong fundamentals are having pumps. And then this leads us to phase 4, which is full-blown alt season. Now, how do we get to this? How do we know when we are in phase 1, 2, 3, etc.? Well, let's first look at Bitcoin. This is the monthly chart for Bitcoin. Now, I'm actually going to add a second chart on the bottom, and this is going to be Bitcoin dominance. Now, this is a little bit of a rough, let me clean up this chart, because this has been a rough chart that I've had on the chart for a while. But regardless, let me go to the monthly on this and show you guys an example of something. So if we look back in time, and I just want to kind of zoom out just so that we have everything on the chart here. I'm hoping that you guys can see this pretty good. If not, I do apologize. But regardless, the thing that I really want to focus on here is what causes the market to go absolutely crazy. So if we look back here in 2017, 2018, we saw Bitcoin dominance already breaking down significantly. Now, this is like around roughly May of 2017 into the summer of 2017. We look on the bottom, guys, look at Bitcoin dominance. It pretty much topped out around the beginning of 2017, and we just continued to see it slide all the way down here to about roughly 35.5%. This bottom here was basically the top of Bitcoin, and it was the top for most of the market. In fact, most of the market topped out around the end of December into the beginning of January of 2018. Very similar to 2020 into 2021, again, most altcoins didn't go crazy, and most of the market didn't go crazy until after March of 2020. But as we look down here on the Bitcoin dominance chart, this is the key level that we were actually addressing, which was 72% back then. Now, I didn't have a channel. I wasn't even an influencer or anything like that around crypto during this time for reference. But this was what everyone was looking at, which was the major resistance zone on Bitcoin dominance, which was right around 70, almost 2%. So we topped out there around September, August of 2019, and then continued to sell off. What ended up happening was most altcoins from roughly March of 2020 onward, specifically around the summertime, started going crazy. Now, the summer was known as DeFi summer. That's when a lot of those altcoins started to break out against Bitcoin, because as we look on this chart, dominance was starting to weaken heavily right around the summertime. But then in the fall time frame, when most altcoins slightly had a big run up, but it wasn't anything too crazy, altcoins actually started to underperform against Bitcoin. And during this time, as you guys do see on the chart up on the top, which is Bitcoin's price, in September of 2020, Bitcoin was trading at about roughly 11.2K. And this is when we started to see a major spike for about roughly 4 months in a row. During this time, Bitcoin went from like roughly 11.9K all the way to roughly $42,000. And this is when it topped out in terms of Bitcoin dominance. The next 3 months, though, were followed by a major spike all the way up here to about roughly $65,000. Down here, the next couple candles, monthly wise, for Bitcoin dominance were extremely bearish. Now, most of the altcoin market topped out around April into May of 2021. Very similar to like the 2021 timeframe, except, or the 2017, 2018 timeframe, sorry. But the problem here was most of those altcoins didn't bounce back on the next wave of Bitcoin. And we didn't really have that other wave back here. We only had one initial top. Over here, we have this top back in April of 2021, followed by this top in November. But most altcoins did not make a new high during this November run. Most of the altcoin market was topping out around April into May, all the way through the summer into September. That's when most altcoins were done. So on the next move to the upside on Bitcoin to like that November of 2021 high, most altcoins didn't really follow through with that. And it's simply because, again, Bitcoin dominance didn't really have anywhere else to go. It was just when this got oversold, which was into May. This is when this chart bottomed, and then it just ranged. So altcoins were not going to move significantly on the next wave up because as we look at Bitcoin dominance, this was already bottomed out. Now, as we look at this chart, we are starting to move. And the question is, where does Bitcoin dominance top out on? Well, I've been really kind of looking at this 57.5% level where macro-wise on Bitcoin dominance, right? We continue this bearish structure where it's just followed by lower highs and lower lows. And the question is, do we top out right around roughly 57.5%? Very similar to this top back in, September and May of 2019, right? Like this is 2019 into 2021, where this continued to hit this resistance zone and just reject. Is that going to be the case here in terms of 57.5%? We don't know yet, but so far I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be surprised if this was our topping point for Bitcoin dominance, either there to about roughly like 64%. This entire range here on Bitcoin dominance is where I'm bearish on the dominance chart, not on the market or anything like that. So from there, we are expecting a major downtrend to begin. And this is where we also look for a possible lower structure on Bitcoin dominance below 39.77%. Now, is that going to be retesting the 2018 lows at about roughly 35%? It's questionable. But we'll have to see for a major bounce down here if we are going to go that low or not. But regardless, the thing that I really want to, really address here is the fact that, yes, Bitcoin dominance is ready to sell off. And during this time, what we end up seeing, and I could actually show you guys on the XRP USD chart because we have that price data. This is what this chart looks like. Everyone's always looking at what is causing XRP to have these major moves to the upside. Well, even back here in 2017 into 2018, look at Bitcoin dominance. While Bitcoin was still pumping all the way through into December of 2017. That's what caused XRP to go crazy. It was alt season. Bitcoin was pumping. So this is what Bitcoin was doing. While Bitcoin dominance was doing the opposite. It was breaking down. That's what alt season is. So you want to see Bitcoin dominance break down while Bitcoin breaks to the upside. And that's when we really start to see XRP go crazy, because also during this time, what you'll see is the dominance chart for XRP or any altcoin having a major run up to the upside, like we saw here in May of 2017, and also followed by December of 2017 into January of 2018. Now, very similar to this, right? As we look at HBAR, this is what is going to cause HBAR to have a big breakout. Currently speaking, on the weekly, this is what the HBAR Bitcoin pair looks like. So we're trying to have an attempted breakout on this chart. I wouldn't be surprised if this did sell off down into this slight red zone down here on the bottom trend line once more before we get a big break to the upside, back test that trend line, and then we go crazy. And during that time, alt season should officially be starting. That's when we should see a lot of these altcoins breaking out against Bitcoin. And even when we look at the HBAR the HBAR dominance chart, this thing is just ranging to the sideways range. This is what it's doing, waiting for a big breakout to the upside. And yes, I do believe that this chart is essentially bottomed out, and it looks pretty much bottomed out as well ever since going all the way back to 2021 in October, when this thing pretty much topped out at about roughly like 0.27%. Now, I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing really started to have a major breakout on this next move to the upside in terms of the HBAR Bitcoin pair, but it's going to range a little bit longer to the right until we have a big breakdown on Bitcoin dominance. But this is what we want to actually see. We want to see something doing this before the big spike to the upside, very similar to this chart. Like when we look at the HBAR Bitcoin pair, just like the dominance chart, and just like we were talking about with Bitcoin dominance, like this thing is just going to range down here until we see a breakdown on the Bitcoin dominance chart, and until we start to see alt season officially start and begin. Now, the other question is, when are we going to get out of a Bitcoin driven market? Well, it's a very good question, and ultimately speaking, what we're looking at when it comes to getting out of a Bitcoin-driven market, and more so into a utility-driven market, that's going to happen after we start to see regulations coming into the space, and that's when we will start to see dominance really kind of usurp from Bitcoin. And ultimately speaking, I hate to be that guy, but I do think that this chart will continue to actually lose dominance over time. Might not go into like the negatives, but I do think that this thing will continue to lose dominance over time and just kind of range at some level down here in between like roughly 1 to 5%, possibly even 10%. And the reason for that is because of adoption. When we look at Hedera, the number one thing that I always look at on a lot of these projects is specifically the data behind them. When it comes to Hedera, this is one of the most adopted enterprise networks out there. Year to date, this year so far, in the first 5 months of 2024, we did already 13.8 billion transactions. And whether or not you want to think that this is real transactions, that there's value tied to this or not, it does not matter. Enterprises are coming over to Hedera and adopting it and utilizing it. That is utility. XRP is utility. Right now, we're laughed at. Utility projects are laughed at, and the reason for that is because we're still in a hype and speculative market. Even if we go over here to the top gainers and losers, and we go to the last 30 days, and we go to the all-time, a lot of these projects are just completely garbage. And it's not me being rude or anything, it's the fact that a lot of these are just garbage projects. And even when you look at them, right, you can clearly see the facts, which is they're moving off of pretty much no liquidity. If you are making any substantial money on these, you are not going to be able to sell because there's not enough liquidity backing these projects. Even when you look at, some of these projects, when they're getting hyped up all over X, most of these people are getting paid to promote these projects. There's nothing really going on behind these projects. They're moving off of pretty much no volume. Here's a great example of that. It's moving off of like $93,000. Nobody is able to sell this. So we're not in a utility-driven market. How do we get there? Well, one, we get regulations, which is going to wipe out most of the market. It's going to make pretty much anything that doesn't have any value tied to it pretty much valueless. And it's going to be very similar to the dot-com bubble, right? Where you had those billion-dollar companies that were shell companies that had nothing tied to them. They got completely wiped out. They're nothing now. You don't know those names, but you do know Amazon and Microsoft and Google and Nvidia. Like, these are those blue chips. And that's why when we look at projects like Hedera, I always say, like, this thing is a blue chip. This is a project that everyone is going to know the name of when we are in a utility-driven market. But there's still some time until we get there. I hate to be that guy, but we still need regulations. We still need standardization in place, which a lot of people believe that the standards are already in place, which technically, yes, most of them are, like ISO TC 307 and ISO 20022. But when we look at that, it's still going to take some time until these are fully embraced at scale. But so far, we see the value behind utility, and it's here. And the big names are starting to get in. BlackRock's here, Fidelity's here. Like, these are big players that have been waiting on the sidelines, or at least involved in some way, shape, or form in the past. And now they're fully embracing it. So we're getting closer than ever before. And I really do hope that that kind of gave you guys a breakdown on just how altcoins move, why your favorite altcoin, whether it be HBAR, XRP, or whatever the case may be, is not moving right now. But I'm telling you guys right now, as we look at the charts, we are just brewing and waiting for something very similar to, this time back here where we started to have that big breakdown, or even back in 2021 when we had that big breakdown as well. The same exact thing is going to happen somewhere probably around this range where we do have that big breakdown, and that's going to lead altcoins into the promised land. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, to notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.